Greetings, fellow blockheads. Welcome to It's a Podcast, Charlie Brown, episode number 117. My name is Bill. I'm your host. Thanks for listening. Welcome back, everybody. I hope things are going wonderfully, which of course they are because you're Peanuts fans, and Peanuts fans are the happiest, greatest people on the planet Earth, and for all I know, a few other planets. If you happen to be from another planet and you're enjoying the Peanuts comic strip, please let us know. We're going to do some fun stuff this time. We've got a review of the latest news or interesting type news-ish Peanuts items. We've got a random strip of the month, and we're going to talk about the first two episodes of the, so far, two-season Apple TV Plus Wild Brain Peanuts Worldwide series Snoopy in Space. So, without further ado, let's do some of that stuff. Here's where you would hear a news and feedback theme if I had one. You all, of course, are still invited to come up with a theme for this segment. In the meantime, just sing something to yourself. CBR.com ran a piece titled The Surprising Importance of Schroeder to Peanuts' Success. Apparently this is an ongoing segment, Comic Book Legends Revealed, and in this one they talked about Schroeder. The article talks about how Schultz himself was a Brahms fan, but he made Schroeder a Beethoven fan because he thought Beethoven sounded funnier. They talked about the detail that Schultz put into reproducing the music in the strips. The article says that classical music fans really appreciated this. Apparently, when an editor at Reinhardt and Winston in 1951 saw one of the Schroeder comic strips and responded favorably to it because the editor himself was a pianist, he contacted Schultz, praising Schultz's attention to detail. The editor became a regular Peanuts reader, and not long after that worked with Schultz to come up with the idea for reprinting Peanuts in a book collection, which helped the strip, of course, reach a new audience and help increase its popularity. So the thesis of the article is, without this pianist editor responding to pianist Schroeder, Peanuts strips might not have started appearing in comic book or in book form and gain the popularity that it did. I don't know if that's true or not, but it is one possible way that this happened. If you guys have opinions about Schroeder that you want to share, please do.
I can't stand this. I'm going to get a glass of water.
Collider ran a piece called The 10 Best Blue Sky Studio Movies, a ranked list. Blue Sky, of course, did the 2015 Peanuts movie. Blue Sky shut down in 2021, but before that had managed to put out some good movies. Number 10 on this list, Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs from 2009. Number 9, Spies in Disguise, 2019. Number 8, Dr. Seuss Horton Hears a Who in 2008. Epic in 2013. I don't think I've heard of that one. 6, Rio from 2012. Ferdinand in 2016 at number 5. Number 4 was Ice Age, The Meltdown in 2006. Number 3 on this list, Robots in 2005. Ice Age, the original one, I guess, in 2002. And then coming in at number 1, the best movie put out by Blue Sky, according to this list, from Collider, was, indeed, the Peanuts movie in 2015. The description says that the Peanuts movie was among the first mainstream animated films to begin a trend seen in the likes of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, utilizing computer animation with a hand-illustrated aesthetic. Basically, they replicate the style of Schultz's original strips, replicating them perfectly in a 3D environment. If anybody wants to take issue with this list, please let us know. Every other Tuesday at the Redwood Empire Ice Arena in Santa Rosa, which is also known as Snoopy's Home Ice, right? The skating rink that Schultz and first wife Joyce organized years ago. The rink every other Tuesday hosts a hockey match. Starting in 1971, Schultz invited people to come out on Tuesday nights and play hockey, and the gathering is still going on, even though Schultz passed away, of course, in 2000. The weekly game now is called Sparky's Skate and meets from around 6 to 7:30 p.m. There are 33 members, ages ranging from early 40s to late 80s, most of which have some connection to Schultz. They might be friends of or family, they might be fans. They are there in some way because of Schultz. The current organizer is a friend of Schultz named Phil LeBrun, who is 67, and describes Schultz as very competitive but fair, very humble, very thoughtful. Just a great guy all the way around. If anyone has participated in this gathering or gone to see the games or anything, the matches, let us know. A drag queen named Mr. Charlie Brown, very well known in Atlanta, recently passed away in March at the age of 74 following complications from heart surgery. Born Charles H. Dillard, he got the name Charlie Brown while working at a Holiday Inn in Nashville. A coworker arrived to take over the front desk, saw that Dillard had left the check-in system in shambles, and cursed at him saying, "Bedword here. God damn you, Charlie Brown." And then the first time that Dillard performed in drag was a turnabout show where the bartenders do drag and drag queens tend the bar. Eventually the name Mr. Charlie Brown stuck. So, our condolences to friends and family of Mr. Charlie Brown. The Thompson Center at the Art Institute in Chicago is being turned into something called Google Max Prison Complex. So an abstract statue outside the building is being moved to a new location. It's called Snoopy in a Blender, and apparently depicts the famous cartoon beagle Snoopy being violently dismembered by an industrial blender. It's going to be reunited with a companion piece called Mickey Run Over by a Steamroller, and was designed by the artist Jean Dubuffet, an artist who, according to this article, really, really hated cartoons. I don't really know what the source of this hatred is, but evidently he took out his hatred on Mickey Mouse and Snoopy. The Snoopy in a Blender was unveiled at the Thompson Center in 1984. There's apparently also one called Snoopy with Deep Axe Wounds, but that one's not on display because of copyright issues. The Scooby-Doo copyright apparently expires in 2059. If anyone's in Chicago and can get a picture of these statues for us, please do. I think it's the Snoopy one's being moved. I don't think this article says where it's going to yet, but it is being moved from its current location. As I say, if anyone can give us a picture, it's at the Art Institute. Please do. Peanuts Worldwide has appointed K&C, a creative branding agency, to handle its social media strategy across Japan. That includes social media strategy, activation, influencer collaborations, all sorts of stuff like that. Of course, we know that Peanuts is huge in Japan, so I can't imagine that this is going to be a difficult job. Summer camps are starting soon at the Schultz Museum, June 10th through August 16th. There are pre-K to kindergarten camps, including Outdoor Art and Adventure Mini and Camp Cool Mini. Grades 1 to 3, grades 4 to 6, grades 6 and up all have camps. There's ice skating, there's comics, there's manga, anime, painting, Lego, acting for Peanuts 1. Not sure what that is, but that sounds interesting. You get a free Snoopy t-shirt, morning and afternoon sessions. So if you're in the Santa Rosa area, I would get yourself signed up soon. CBR put up an article titled "When Peanuts Mocked Strawberry Shortcake," with the thesis that Charles Schultz's character Tapioca Pudding was a satire of Strawberry Shortcake. The article says that Peanuts didn't mind licensing characters, but thought the character should be established first and then licensed. But evidently he saw Strawberry Shortcake as just a name with a cute design without any sort of basis for the character. I'd never thought about it. I guess that's possible. I don't know. If anyone wants to weigh in on that, please do. Here's a bit of a tangent. The Sesame Street writers have worked out a deal, an agreement on a new contract. The deal for the Sesame Workshop writers had been set to expire in late April. The deadline to do that before going on strike was April 25th. They had voted unanimously to strike if they didn't work out a deal through the Writers Guild of America, but a deal was worked out, and we are happy for that.
C is for cookie, that's good enough for me. C is for cookie, that's good enough for me. C is for cookie, that's good enough for me. Oh, cookie, cookie, cookie starts with C.
Hey, planning to visit South Korea? Well, if you do, and you go to Busan, you can check out the new Snoopy Place Cafe, a heartfelt homage to Snoopy and his pals, blending nostalgia with scrumptious treats for one-of-a-kind experience. I've never been, but if any of you have, let us know what you thought. Kings Island in Ohio has completed the first test run of its newest roller coaster, Snoopy's Soapbox Racers. The roller coaster can go forward and backward and gets up to 36 miles per hour on a 1,400-foot track. It's part of Camp Snoopy, a new kids area scheduled to open later in the spring. Camp Snoopy itself is a reinvention of the park's children's area, formerly called Planet Snoopy. If anyone's into roller coasters and wants to let us know what you think of this one, if you happen to ride it, please do. Far Out magazine compiled a list of every Charlie Brown reference in Wes Anderson movies. Anderson, the filmmaker, is a well-known Peanuts fan, evidently. I've seen every Wes Anderson movie, I believe, mostly because I can't decide if I like them or not. They're odd, and that kind of thing I should like, but I can't decide if I do, because I tend to get... Okay, I'm going to be honest here. I tend to fall asleep when I'm watching them, and I'm not sure why. If it's just because I watch them later in the evening, because no one else in my family is interested in watching them, so I have to wait until later in the evening. Maybe that's why, or I don't know if it's that, or if there's something about the films. I can't decide, but evidently he makes a lot of Peanuts references. I can't off the top of my head remember any, but this Far Out magazine article from April 22nd in faroutmagazine.co.uk has them all. So if you want to check that list out, please do. AOL.com ran a piece on April 26th called Searching for Snoopy, What Happened to All the Peanuts Statues in St. Paul. I mention this because the article has a quote in there from friend of the show, William Johnson, Peanuts fan and author of the 2-volume set, The Complete History of Peanuts on Parade, which is about those very same statues, as well as the statues that were in California. So if you want to check that out, please do. In the letters section of unionleader.com, someone wrote in, and in the opening line of the letter it says, "Comic made me sad." To the editor, the comic strip is supposed to make one happy. In the article, he's talking specifically about a strip that ran in For Better or Worse, where, spoiler, the dog Farley dies. He's not actually talking about Peanuts here, but it did make me, want to raise the question to you. Do comic strips have an obligation to not make you sad? Peanuts, of course, we know that Schultz could effortlessly move between funny and melancholy and outright sad without seemingly really even trying, and it just seemed to work. But do we think that it shouldn't have? Should Peanuts have just always been funny? Should other comic strips always be funny? Or always be sad? One or the other. And should they advertise themselves that way? Does calling it a comic strip by definition mean funny? Let me know what you think. Wyandotte Daily ran a piece called The 9 Best Things to Do in Sonoma, May of 2024. Of course, in the past, we've talked about how Sonoma County, California, for some reason, is struggling with tourism numbers. So go check this piece out if you're on the fence about visiting Sonoma. This article has a bunch of suggestions for things to do when you're there, including, of course, the Schultz Museum. If you're not subscribing to the Schultz Museum email, you should be, for many reasons, including that they always let you know about upcoming events. If you're planning a visit, please do. Even if you're not going to the museum, it is nice to hear about the exhibits that they have, because it's always interesting to hear what they come up with. Speaking of Sonoma County and Santa Rosa, the Luther Burbank Rose Parade and Festival will return to the streets of downtown Santa Rosa starting this year for the first time since before COVID. This is not the California Rose Parade, of course. This is a totally different event. Actually, strike that. It's already happened. It happened on May 18th. If you guys happen to be there, send pictures, because I will bet that there were some Peanuts presents in the parade. May 5th evidently was World Cartoonist Day, so if you know any cartoonists and you didn't hug them on World Cartoonist Day, make sure you take care of that now. TommyMedia.com asked the question whether Snoopy is the new Gen Z icon. Evidently, the official Snoopy TikTok account saw a 223.8% increase in engagement and gained 198,000 followers as of the end of 2023, with a 7.1% increase in social media usage worldwide, the highest being for 18 to 24-year-olds. Don't know why this is. I am not Gen Z. I am way too old for that. If you happen to be a Gen Zer and want to weigh in on why this is, I would appreciate that. According to WeAreTeachers.com, among the 25 must-watch baseball movies for kids is Charlie Brown's All-Stars. So there you have it. Go watch Charlie Brown's All-Stars, and then look up on this podcast when we talked about it, Charlie Brown's All-Stars, and listen to that episode. Teachers are telling you to do it. Listen to teachers, everybody. Former First Lady Michelle Obama was recently hanging out with musician John Batiste, perhaps best known as the former band leader for the Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and they played a duet Obama and Batiste did of Linus and Lucy. Batiste originally had a documentary done about him that was nominated for an Oscar, and the two of them were talking, and they sat down at a piano, and it came out that Obama actually can play, and he asked her to play. She said, well, this is one of the few songs I remember, and she started playing, so they played together. I believe the video's on YouTube if you want to check that out. Record Store Day happened recently. Did anyone go check out or pick up Vince Guaraldi's It Was a Short Summer Charlie Brown soundtrack? I was not able to get it, but it is coming out this summer, officially. It Was a Short Summer came out in 1969. The soundtrack on vinyl will be out, if you didn't get it on Record Store Day. Okay, maybe it is actually officially released now, though I don't know in reality how many stores actually have it. Perhaps it can be ordered. So, as always, if anyone picks it up and you want to send us a review, please do. We talked about the new roller coaster at Kings Island, Camp Snoopy. Knott's Berry Farm, Camp Snoopy, though, is running into trouble. There have been construction delays with the new reimagined Camp Snoopy, so it's not going to open Memorial Day as expected. It'll be open sometime in early summer. So if you're trying to plan a trip to Knott's Berry Farm, keep that in mind. The Sopwith Camel, that may sound familiar to you. It was a legendary World War I fighter, British. Only 8 of the 5,490 that were actually built still remain. One of them is actually airworthy and is located in New Zealand. It was named after herbivorous mammal, the camel, I guess. Of course, it was actually made famous by Snoopy. If anyone's an aviation enthusiast and has seen these planes up close, let us know what they're like. My real only experience with it is with a doghouse called a Sopwith Camel. I don't imagine the real planes look much like that. MSN.com put out a list of the museums everyone should go to at least once in California. It will shock you to know that the Charles M. Schulz Museum is on there. As if anyone needed any persuading to go, Microsoft says you should. So for goodness sakes, you better do it. And, of course, share photos if you do. All right, that's it for news this month. On with other things.
Let's have some fun. Let's invite our friends to a Polynesian whinding.
If you've ever been to a used record shop, estate sale, or a Goodwill store, you've likely seen them. Records of motivational speeches, instructions on how to set up your state-of-the-art 1972 stereo system, gospel quartets that inexplicably have 5 members, and learning to belly dance.
Forward, right, backward, left.
Who buys this stuff, you've undoubtedly asked? Well, to answer your question, I buy this stuff.
Gentlemen, get the thing straight once and for all. The policeman isn't there to create disorder. The policeman is there to preserve disorder.
I'm Sean, and I have a weird record collection. If you've ever had the slightest curiosity about these vinyl oddities but weren't curious enough to part with your money, have I got great news for you. I parted with my money so you don't have to part with yours. My Weird Record Collection is a podcast that discusses these interesting albums, complete with samples and, whenever possible, the history behind these wonders of wax. While I'm at it, I'll also go over some general record collecting tips and tricks with you along this crazy journey. Keep an eye out on your favorite podcast provider starting in January 2024. In the meantime, you can follow me on the various social media platforms under the handle My Weird Records or search for My Weird Record Collection on Facebook. So subscribe to My Weird Record Collection. It's sure to get 1 million downloads in January.
And exaggerate your mouth movements.
Then the wolf became very angry, and he huffed and puffed and he blew the house in. That's ridiculous. No animal could huff and puff that hard. Have you ever read
Random Strip of the Month?
It's quite a story.
Every month on the podcast, we take a little break from talking about all the other stuff, the merchandise and the animated specials and Charles Schulz and all of that. To take a couple of minutes to remember this all begins with the strip, 17,800 and some of those. And we do that in a segment called Random Strip of the Month. It's pretty simple. Either I or a guest picks a strip that we really like. I'm still waiting for someone to pick one that they don't like because I think that would be interesting. No one's done it yet, but I'm waiting for that to happen. Or literally pick a strip at random. We say when it was published, we tell everybody what the strip what happens in the strip, and for a couple of minutes we talked about what we think of it. Last month on the podcast, I was happy to have Gene Kannenberg Jr., who is the paper engineer for the new book, Here Comes Charlie Brown, a Peanuts Pop-Up, which I told everybody last month to go get. If you haven't done it yet, you still can. It's in stores. You can go get it, and you should. While Gene was here, he said that he had his own strip in mind to talk about. So here's Gene. Hi, Gene. You're still here. You have a strip, I'm told.
I have a strip indeed.
Okay. What did
And
you
the
pick?
strip I have is September 9th, 1999.
All right.
Uh,
A late era one, huh?
a late era one, yeah.
Okay.
I really like the last year and a half or so of Peanuts. I think what Schultz was doing becomes funny and weird in a way that the strip hadn't been in a long time. Should I just go ahead and read it?
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, just this is for me, not for the listeners who probably paid more attention. Did you say September 9?
Yes, 9999.
Okay, I have it here. Yeah, if you don't mind, if you can just tell us what happens.
Sure. Okay. Rerun Van Pelt and a classmate. I'm not sure what her name is.
I don't know if she has a name.
I don't know if
but-
she has a name.
Yeah.
Are sitting there in art class, and she looks at him and says, "We're supposed to be painting flowers." And he says, "Not me." Second panel. This is Tarzan beating up on Mickey Mouse, and here's Daffy Duck beating up on Tarzan. Third panel. I'm into basement comics. Fourth panel. She says, "Underground." Rerun says, "Whatever."
That's funny.
End of strip.
Yeah.
I love Rerun's whole run as a basement cartoonist.
Yeah.
Or underground cartoonist.
He's an interesting character.
Rerun is funny. Rerun is weird. And this whole underground riff is like 30 years too late.
Yeah.
But it's still hilarious.
I love
It's
the
kind of
idea.
like, yeah,
Go
and
ahead.
it's kind of like he's almost like taking on the air pirates, sort of like the air pirates who were like taking the the underground cartoons who were taking the Disney comics and doing bad things with them. But here he's just taking Tarzan beating up on Mickey Mouse and things like that. But the thing is, he calls them basement comics, and like as it goes on, she makes these comments like she knows they're called underground comics, and his attitude, whatever. He's kind of punk about the whole thing. Yeah, whatever. And in a later strip, she actually makes the comment, "I don't see any women here."
Yeah.
And the punchline is like, "They're the ones with long hair, right?" Like, he's so oblivious, but like she seems to know a lot.
Yeah.
And he's just so lost in his art, and he's kind of dumb about it.
But
he's also
yeah,
he's also hilarious.
absolutely. And in his defense, a lot of times the basement is underground, so
Oh yeah.
he's not totally wrong. Rerun is an interesting character. As a little kid, Rerun confused me because I was trying to figure out, wait, is that Linus? And it took me a while as a kid to figure out, oh no, he's another Van Pelt sibling.
Yeah.
I like in these later years that Schultz fleshed him out so much. He kind of takes over the strip, at a certain point to an extent.
Yeah.
And he becomes more of a character, like with these underground comics and things, not just the kid on the back of the bicycle.
Right. Yeah. There was a lot of back on the bicycle stuff in like I think in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, but in this era, he's got his own sort of identity going on, and I like that. This is a funny strip. Do we think Charles Schultz was reading a lot of underground comics?
I don't think so, because if he was reading a lot of underground comics are not Tarzan fighting Batman.
Well, no,
It's like,
that's the joke. But
yeah,
was Schultz certainly was obviously he was aware. At least he'd heard the term
I'm
underground
sure, I'm
comics
sure,
somewhere.
yeah, I'm sure he was aware, but
I guess his kids might have been reading them. So
that's possible. But I mean,
maybe.
it just I just remember reading this one in the newspaper when it came out. I was like, where is this coming from? It's so bizarre. And again, the punchline is it's not a ha ha punchline.
Mm-mm.
It's a whatever.
Whatever's a good punchline in a lot of contexts.
Yeah.
In our conversation earlier that people heard last month on the podcast, I said that I would totally read a book of the $6 million Shermie that you proposed. I would read a book of Tarzan beating up Mickey Mouse because that would be an interesting comic to read.
Oh yeah. And
Disney, I
then
don't think would ever go for that, but
I probably not. No. Um
I like the strip a
and
lot.
yeah. And actually the next days is funny, where he gets called to the principal's office.
I was looking at that, yeah.
And he describes it as something. It's Tarzan beating up Mickey Mouse, but he's got an ape and an elephant helping him. It wasn't a fair fight. It's like, so he's really put a lot of thought into
He
it.
really has.
It's just it's so ridiculous.
It is. Okay, I see the one now. The day before that is the one where she tells him that they're supposed to be painting flowers. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, but he has his own muse. He has his own.
he does. He's got a different voice in his head that he's listening to. So I kind of respect that, Um, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
rerun was always interesting, but he became super interesting at the very end.
Why do you?
But I think the whole strip became a lot more interesting in the last year. I keep telling people that go
Yeah.
back and read, find a copy of Peanuts 2000,
Yeah.
and read that book again,
Mhm.
because I think you'll be really surprised. Because I think a lot of people had just kind of given up on Peanuts by then.
Yeah. Well, it did. Arguably, it did in the '80s kind of go through a mellowing.
Yeah, there were some doldrums, and I think people gave up and never gave it another chance.
I heard
But
somebody on a podcast describe it as being like the characters all seemed, especially like Snoopy, were almost becoming like middle-aged in a sense. They've kind of mellowed out a little bit.
yeah, and I don't know that I would necessarily disagree. But again, that last year, it's like he got his like 12th wind or something, and suddenly things just got a lot more interesting for some reason.
Any idea why? Any guesses?
I have no idea why. I don't know if he knew that he was somehow, if he knew that he was thinking about ending it or something.
He maybe sensed that the end was coming, perhaps, and
I don't know, but
Yeah.
but the ideas got weirder,
yeah,
and just kind of more interesting. He wasn't treading water anymore.
no,
There's a lot less. There's a lot less of that, and a lot more just going for weirdness in a way that I hadn't seen in the longest time.
yeah, and I agree. I've not read those last years recently, but my memories, I kind of agree with that. I'm going to be one of those who goes back and reads those now because I feel like I need a refresher. Well, that's an excellent pick. Anything else you want to say about that one?
No, but my money's on Tarzan.
Boy, I don't know. Okay, so it was Tarzan versus Mickey, and then who were the other matchups? Daffy Duck Daffy Duck comes in and beats up on Tarzan.
Yeah,
That I can see.
It's Tarzan and Batman. Well, Tarzan had beaten on Mickey Mouse, and here's Daffy Duck beating on Tarzan. What was I thinking? I was thinking Batman was in there for some reason.
I was thinking if maybe he was in the one with
maybe Batman comes in at another time.
Yeah, I don't know. So Mickey versus Tarzan. Yeah, I got to give it to Tarzan. Mickey's too nice. Daffy, I could see fighting dirty, so he might have a chance against Tarzan.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Although there is that one stretch of that early stretch of Mickey Mouse where Mickey Mouse is trying to kill himself and he's got the poison and the guns and things like that. So maybe.
I don't remember this. Is that
Oh, you don't?
Is that real?
Oh, no, it's totally real.
Is this like 1920s?
It's
Mickey?
very, very early on. Minnie has decided to go out with somebody else, and Mickey spends a week trying to commit suicide.
Oh my God. That's kind of dark. That's really dark.
It's really dark.
Yeah.
It's really dark. I
Wow.
believe he tries to hang himself. He tries to shoot himself. I believe he tries to shoot up.
Oh my God.
And I forget what the other thing is. But
Is
it's
that like-
really dark.
Is that like in the
It's dark.
strip or in
In
an
the
animated?
strip.
Okay.
No, not animated. It was in the newspaper.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, comics changed a bit over time.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
were it kind of makes the gag in this first Peanut strip, How I Hate Him, seem pretty tame.
It's pretty tight. Yeah.
We were talking in our earlier conversation about, that was probably pretty startling for 1950, but man, that's nothing compared to what you just described. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
Sorry about that.
No, well, yeah, I'm just kind of stunned now. Wow. I'll take some time to process that. It'll be okay. Well, I'm going to go read some 1990s Peanuts, and I'm going to let you go enjoy your day. I appreciate you doing this segment. I appreciate our conversation last time. I'm looking forward to whatever you do next in the Peanuts world, and hopefully getting a chance to talk to you again.
Okay, great. I look forward to it too.
A person I once knew, while complaining about someone she was arguing with, threw up her hands and said, "He must think I live in a carnival-like atmosphere of glee." Upset as this person was, though, I always thought this sounded like kind of a cool state to live in. Well, I'm not there yet, but I've got a website, carnivalofgleecreations.com, and there's stuff on there, everything you can want, like the podcast Atari Bytes, featuring old games and original short stories that are pretty unrelated. And my other podcast, it's a podcast, Charlie Brown, covering anything and everything in and around the iconic Peanuts comic strip. If the printed word is more your thing, there are books on there too, like The Novel in the St. Nick of Time and short story collections Misery Banana, Hell's Cereal, and Second Duck on the Right. Want to know what else I'm up to? That's all there too. carnivalofgleecreations.com. Everything you need. Glee not included. Snoopy in Space is a Canadian-American Flash animated streaming television series produced by DHX Media, debuted in 2019 on Apple TV+. I've now had a chance to watch some of these episodes. It was developed by Rob Boutier. The overall stories by Betsy Walters. There are 12 episodes in the first season. Episodes are missions. They call them missions. Executive produced by Josh Sherba, Ann Loy, Stephanie Betts, Paige Braddock, Craig Schultz, Mark Evestaff, and Eric Allen Bogan. The episodes seem to run around 8-9 minutes. The one we're going to talk about in this episode is Season 1, Mission 1, The Application. The little time bar thing on the screen told me it was going to be 12 minutes, but it actually concluded at around 9 minutes, so I'm not sure what was happening there. The series is distributed by DHX Media, Wildbrain, Warner Brothers, Domestic Television Distribution. The look of it, it's not the clearly computer-generated animation look of the Peanuts movie, but it's not quite the look of the 1960s, 70s TV specials, if that's what you're into. It's somewhere in between, I guess. I assume it's still computer animated, but it looks more like the old style TV specials, just shinier. There's some little details that have changed, of course. It's all about Snoopy trying to become an astronaut in 2019, so of course the technology is not traditionally, Peanuts locked in a time bubble technology. There's newer stuff. All the Peanuts kids seem to go to the same school, which I forever am going to call Birchwood School. Franklin, Peppermint Patty, Marcy, all those guys go to the same school as the other kids. Sally in this episode wears a pink dress. You guys know that I tend to prefer my Peanuts characters in their traditional costumes, but I'll let it go. Mission 1, Episode 1, opens up with sort of some light jazz for the opening theme. We see Snoopy lying on top of the mailbox. It's nighttime. Apparently he's waiting for a letter. And then we cut to him in his World War I flying ace, persona, flying around in his Sopwith Camel. And then he's almost collides with a rocket. The rocket has a big paw print on the side. This annoys him, so he chases the rocket through the Earth's atmosphere into outer space. The Sopwith Camel, I guess, figuring out that it's an airplane, not a spaceship, craps out and falls back to Earth. Snoopy at first is kind of floating around. At first he goes, the closest thing to Snoopy speaking, he kind of goes, uh-oh, and then he's kind of having a good time at first, sort of floating around in space, until he figures out that he's just floating around in space. So he crashes back to Earth through the atmosphere, no harm done. He's Snoopy, of course. Crashes back to Earth next to his doghouse, lands on top of Woodstock, who is scolding him. Next, we see Charlie Brown rushing out to the doghouse with Snoopy's breakfast. Charlie Brown has a telescope strapped to his head. Doesn't explain it. He just says, sorry, no time, in a rush. I'm waiting for the school space plane to show up. And then we see Marcy walk in. She's dressed like a space shuttle. I was kind of expecting at this point that Snoopy would wake up. We'd find out this was a dream. But no, she has a remote control. She's flying a remote control little toy space shuttle. Zooms around and almost hits everybody and that kind of thing. Next, we're at school. And this is where I noticed all the kids were going into the same school. Snoopy tries to get in to see what's going on, but Lucy kicks him out, telling him, no dogs allowed. I'm sorry. We realize now that the kids are doing a school program about space and astronauts and whatnot. Charlie Brown does a little speech about the Hubble Space Telescope. All the things you can do with the telescope that he's wearing, he smacks himself in the head with it. Lucy is lowered down from the ceiling on a harness. She's dressed like a star. Marcy is the Saturn V rocket. Peppermint Patty's an asteroid. Linus just has a bunch of stars taped to his blanket because he is humankind's intangible wonder. And then we get sort of a funny line. Lucy floats down from the ceiling and informs him that he doesn't look anything like an intangible wonder. Sally is a satellite without which you would not be able to watch TV. This, of course, gets a cheer from the audience. Franklin, who, at least in this episode, is sort of the information guy. He's the guy who knows stuff. I hope that that's going to continue throughout the series. Franklin, of course, historically doesn't get to say a whole lot, so it's nice that he does here. He comes out in this school program dressed as an astronaut, the heroes of space. Sometimes, they're treated as such. They even get parades. We see on a screen behind him footage of some astronauts having a parade. Snoopy reacts to that. He thinks that looks pretty cool, but then Lucy throws him out because, of course, he goes back to his doghouse. He puts basically a goldfish bowl on his head. He's up on his doghouse. He's trying to get to launch like a rocket. Woodstock gets all his little bird friends to try and lift it up. They can't do it, of course. The other Peanuts kids have showed up. Apparently it's a very short school day. Peppermint Patty offers to throw him into space. Marcy suggests maybe not that. Maybe he should apply to NASA. Franklin explains that to be an astronaut, you need to be courageous, curious, intelligent, and humbled by your place in the grand, the grand epicness or whatever of space. And of course, Snoopy, as he's talking, is demonstrating all of these things. Trying to sound curious, trying to sound courageous, puts on a graduation robe, all that kind of stuff to look intelligent. Sally basically just sticks out her tongue. She's like, that's boring. We've seen all this. We've seen everything there is to discover, haven't we? Franklin pulls a map, a screen from somewhere, and he starts putting up on the screen somehow, galaxies and stars and constellations and things, and pointing out all this stuff out in space that we don't know a whole lot about. And everyone else just sort of looks sort of shell-shocked, and he's like, too much? So apparently it's really easy to get an application to NASA, because suddenly Snoopy has one, mails it. Snoopy sits by the mailbox for days and days. We see a montage of him sitting there day and night through snowstorms, all that kind of stuff. Finally, one day, there's a letter in the mailbox from NASA. Charlie Brown grabs it, starts reading it, Dear Snoopy, thank you for your application. Like, oh, that sounds pretty good. And then he reads the next paragraph. We're sorry to say you do not meet our qualifications. Snoopy is crushed. Charlie Brown just kind of throws the envelope down, and somebody notices that there's something else sticking out of the envelope. And it turns out to be a bunch of free passes to the Houston Space Center, which we're told by Franklin is next to, we're told that that's where astronauts have launched. We're also told this is where the astronaut training center is. And then Sally's all excited because she realizes, hey, that's also where they sell freeze-dried astronaut ice cream in the gift shop. I guess that's a little plug for the Houston Space Center gift shop. Snoopy doesn't care about any of this. He's not going to be an astronaut. He's not going to be able to do anything until Lucy says, yeah, I don't blame him. He might as well just stay home. It's not like he could sneak onto the training grounds or anything. Snoopy immediately, look on his face, he immediately has a devious plan. So he's all excited to go to the Space Center now. Bus shows up, which looks to me like a school bus. Everybody gets on, and the bus pulls away, except for Charlie Brown, who's chasing after the bus. Hey, wait for me! And that's the end of the episode. So I'm assuming Mission 2 will find the Peanuts kids at the Space Center, and hijinks will ensue. It looks like, not surprisingly, the series is going to be a mix of Snoopy doing wacky things and Franklin telling us things about space and astronauts. This episode had a nice balance of Peanuts kids doing Peanuts kid things and telling us a little bit about NASA. I hope they keep that balance up as they go along. If you've listened to my review of Peanuts in Space, the little documentary, the problem I had with that one is that it wasn't quite enough Peanuts kids being Peanuts kids and not quite enough of a documentary. This series looks like it's going to be a nice balance of both. I'm not sure. Here, let me look at something. I'm not sure what age group this is targeted at. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 100% tomato meter rating and an 85% audience score. Some of those things that I've read seem to suggest that it's good for all ages, of course, but particularly, obviously, kids interested in space. I don't know that it was targeted to a particular audience. It doesn't seem to talk down necessarily to you, but it's clearly not made for adults, but it's clearly not made for little kids either. I believe it was also nominated for a Daytime Emmy. Yeah. Daytime Creative Arts Emmy Award for Outstanding Short Format Children's Program. I don't think it actually won. I'm not sure who it lost to, but it did get nominated. I'm encouraged by this. Of course, some of the newer Peanuts stuff we've gotten in the last few years for an old school fan like me hasn't necessarily been as fun. This one looks kind of fun. It is clearly new school as opposed to old school Peanuts, but it looks kind of fun. So I'm looking forward to watching the next 11 missions, and then it appears there will be a season 2, and hopefully I'll still be looking forward to season 2 by the time I finish season 1. If you guys have any thoughts about Snoopy in space, let me know. Mission number 2, season 1. This one was called Training, also written by Betsy Walters, as the first one was. If you Google Snoopy in space, you see that Betsy Walters is credited as the story, having provided the story for Snoopy in space. I don't know if this means she will have written all of the episodes, but she's written these first 2. Snoopy in Space, season 1 was 12 missions, directed by Rob Boutier, produced by various people, including Craig Schultz, and distributed by DHX Media, Wild Brain, Warner Brothers Domestic Television Distribution, airing, of course, on Apple TV+. In Mission 2, we picked up pretty much where Mission 1 ended. In the last episode, Snoopy applied to be an astronaut, was rejected, got some free passes to go to the Johnson Space Center in Houston. The whole Peanuts gang hopped on a bus to go down there because most of them just wanted to go see the Space Center. Snoopy was hatching a plan to sneak into the training center, which is also there. And episode 2 picks up right there. They're on the bus, headed to the Space Center. Linus is asking Snoopy how Charlie Brown's doing with being rejected. And Charlie Brown's like, oh, yeah, I think he's doing all right. Cut to Snoopy and Woodstock sitting in the back of the bus looking very devious. Snoopy has a map. Charlie Brown's noticing that he looks like he's up to something. It's like, well, I think he's doing okay. Snoopy's pointing out different landmarks on this NASA map, the training facility, the Space Center, all this kind of stuff. Sally's grumbling because she says her tummy is getting grumbly for astronaut ice cream. That was her big excitement in the last episode about the idea of going to Houston. Marcy says she's so excited that she could scream, and then she does, to which Pepper and Patty responds, "You're weird, Marcy." Lucy is excited to find at the Space Center a portrait of Sally Ride. Sally Ride was an American astronaut and physicist who joined NASA in 1978 and became the first American woman in space in 1983. She was the third woman in space overall after USSR cosmonauts Valentina Tereshkova and Svetlana Savitskaya. Lucy wants to find her portrait so that she can hang her own portrait next to it. Linus is excited to see all the exhibits that help to unlock the secrets of the cosmos, answer the questions, why are we here and are we alone? At that point, Lucy sort of eerily rises up from behind his seat wearing weird space alien antenna and sort of says robotically, definitely not. Franklin, he has sort of taken the role, judging by episode 1 anyway, of info guy, and he very rapidly talks about how all the things they can see at the Space Center. There's the Apollo 17 lander, there's moon rocks, this and that. He's all excited. He's kind of blowing everybody's minds with his excitement. And then, magically, they're there already. I don't know exactly where the Peanuts kids live in the comic strip, but it took them no time at all to get to Houston. They hop off the bus. Snoopy commandeers like a little tram or a little vehicle of some sort, takes off for the training center, goes up to a big door and just knocks, waiting for it to open. He sneaks in and is immediately thrown out. He's very upset about this. Charlie Brown walks up and he's like, I'm sorry, Snoopy. I had a feeling you were having trouble taking no for an answer. Let's just get back on the tour. He starts looking at the map and doesn't notice that Snoopy hops aboard a little vehicle with some equipment on it going into the training center. He gets inside, looking around at all the stuff. He sees his own reflection in a space helmet. Gets very excited. But then an alarm goes off, and he's been caught on camera. He sneaks into a room, quickly puts on a fake mustache. Snoopy always seems to have a fake mustache at hand. But then we meet who I guess is going to be a recurring character for the series, Kara, which is just a face on a computer screen. And she talks, and she tells us that Kara stands for Computerized Astronaut Recruitment Advisor. She's like, you must be my new trainee, because clearly, you made it into this highly secure room, so it must be you. Snoopy, of course, is wearing his mustache, and he's like, uh-huh. To which Kara says, great, because, if you were an unauthorized person, you'd be in big trouble. Like this suspicious character. And we see Snoopy on the screen from when he was walking around earlier, and she says, are you ready? And, first thing we need to do is you need to do some light reading, which is just a cue for a joke to drop a bunch of books on Snoopy. A cut to the other Peanuts kids, except for Charlie Brown, checking out some of the exhibits. They're looking at moon rocks and moon dust. Sally sneezes and covers Franklin in moon dust. He starts coughing and gagging and stuff. He's like, totally worth it. Perp and Patty's playing hockey on an exhibit of the moon. These kids seem to have really weird access to all this stuff. But that's the Peanuts world for you. Linus sort of wonders out loud how, if Charlie Brown's also having a good time, having as much fun as we are. Cut to Charlie Brown standing outside the training center in the rain, waiting for his dog. Back inside the training center, Kara tells Snoopy, one of the things you have to do as an astronaut is solve complex problems, and this is a huge math problem on a chalkboard. She starts a countdown, 10 seconds. We see Snoopy furiously writing on the chalkboard. He's sweating, which is weird because dogs don't sweat. Time runs down to 0. He steps back, and really all he's done is draw a picture of Woodstock. Next, it's time for Snoopy's endurance training. We get a shot of a treadmill, but then we see Snoopy just eating a bunch of candy out of vending machines. Kara's not impressed so far, but she's like, okay, we still have time to turn things around. And she's like, and around and around and around. She's amusing herself because it's time for the IC4, if I wrote that down right, IC4 centrifuge training. It's basically like an airplane cockpit on a big long arm, and you sit in it and it spins you around. If you want to know what it looks like, imagine that thing that they put James Bond in Moonraker, when the bad guy wants to kill him. It goes really, really fast, and it's supposed to simulate the pressure of taking off in a space shuttle. Kara tells him it's going to be extremely uncomfortable, so don't try to relax. Snoopy keeps hitting a button, I guess, because he can't talk. I guess that's his way of asking for things. And it's like, Kara's responding. It's like, no, you can't have a pillow. No, there's no beverage service. No, you can't have a chocolate chip cookie. No, there's no hot towels. Finally, she's fed up, and she just throws him out. Cut to Charlie Brown sitting on a bench with a sack lunch and a peanut butter sandwich. Not sure where he got it, but he's got it. And he's like talking to us, basically. And he's like, I try to be a good dog owner, but no one ever tells you what to do if your dog sneaks into a secure government facility. At that moment, Snoopy shows up, still wearing his mustache, by the way, which I thought was weird. Sitting on the bench next to him, he's crushed again. Not so crushed that he can't steal Charlie Brown's sandwich, and Woodstock can't take his cookie, but he's been kicked out of training, and that's the end of the episode. It was about 9 minutes long, probably. I like this one, too. The first episode, was a pretty good mix of Peanuts kids doing Peanuts kid things and information about NASA. This one was more Peanuts kids doing Peanuts things in a NASA setting. We didn't learn a whole lot about NASA necessarily from this one, but that's okay. We still got the gist of what's going on. I don't know where they go from here now that he's been kicked out, but I guess we'll find out in Mission 3. If you guys have thoughts about Snoopy in space, let me know.
Hi, everybody. My name is Sean. I'm not a World War I flying ace, Joe Cool, or even the neighborhood barber. Maybe I'm a blockhead, but I'm definitely a schnook. Just as all of you do, I love Snoopy too, and the rest of the Peanuts gang. Peanuts has always been a big part of my life, but there are a lot of things that are part of my life too, just as much. So, I started a podcast. Autobiography of a Schnook is an as-read-by-the-author style podcast about, just somebody nobody has ever heard of. That would be me, by the way. Autobiography of a Schnook features stories of life, learning, dreams, desires. And every episode has a segment about music, because I also love music. It's a big part of my life, even more so than Peanuts is. But check it out, Autobiography of a Schnook, on your favorite podcast provider, and you can go to schnookpodcast.com for a little bit more information. And I strongly believe the good goes around. And really, happiness is being a schnook.
And that's our show. In a minute, I'll tell you what's up next episode. Thanks to Kevin McLeod and Comptech.com for Creative Commons use of his songs, Basewater, Mining by Moonlight, and Hidden Agenda. Thanks to Henry Pope for the use of his Linus and Lucy remix, which you'll hear once I stop talking. Thanks to Nick Jones for the use of his song, 25% off. Thanks to Sean Courtney for the This Month in Peanuts History theme. You can find It's Podcast Charlie Brown on all sorts of podcatchers. You know how I know that? Because you did it. You're listening to it right now. So clearly you know how. Go try it out on another podcast provider. See if it works there. And if you like that, go listen to it on another provider. Who knows? Maybe it sounds different. Okay, it probably doesn't. But still, go check out the show is what I'm saying. And keep checking it out. Thank you. Leave a 5-star review wherever you have the option to do that. Reviews make me feel good, of course, but they also help other people find the show. Like the It's a Podcast Charlie Brown Facebook page. Follow us on Twitter at It's a Pod CB. I'm also on Threads. I am Carnival of Glee in a bunch of places like Mastodon, Hive, Post News, Spoutable, Tumblr, Blue Sky. Yeah, basically if I'm not It's a Pod, I'm Carnival of Glee. Email the show at charliebrownpodcast@gmail.com. Check out the website, carnivalofgleecreations.com. Send in your random strips of the month. I would love to hear your input on the Peanuts comic strip. I would also like to hear your input in this way.
Do you have a phone number? I can call you sometime. I don't mean right away, but someday when I learn how to use the telephone.
Call us, 563-293-6212, and share your thoughts about pretty much anything you want, though I'm assuming it's going to be Peanuts related. That's a pretty wide canvas, right? The whole thing with this show is anything and everything in and around the Peanuts universe. So I look forward to hearing from you. But if you have trouble getting through, just do what Lucy says.
Dial louder.
If you can't wait a whole month to hear my voice again, Atari Bytes episodes are still out there. The show is still on hiatus, but all the existing episodes are available. If you would like to check that show out, please do. Atari BYTES. Okay, next time on the show, we will have an episode of Peanuts by Schultz called A New Best Friend. We will talk about this month in Peanuts history, which at that point will be June. We'll also talk about a book I read. Basically, it's going to be Christmas in June. I hope that's okay with everybody. There have been many articles and some books discussing A Charlie Brown Christmas, but I'm pretty sure there hasn't been one quite like Michael Keane's book with a really long title. Charlie Brown's Christmas Miracle, the inspiring untold story of the making of a holiday classic. And I recently finished reading it, so I don't want to wait until all the way, next Christmas to talk to you about it. So I'm going to do that next time on the show. So look forward to all of that. Have just a lovely, lovely remainder of May and the first part of June, and we will see you then. In the meantime, just remember, of all the Charlie Browns in the world, you right there, are the Charlie Browniest. Thank you for that.
Just needs a little love.